All right, I'm gonna kick this off. So my name is Joe Van Kampen, for those of you who don't know me. I am the head of the business development and strategic partnerships for Citizen. And today we have Alex Paisley, our director of digital marketing for Citizen, and we're gonna be chatting about the future of AI. Thank you guys so much for joining. As we go through this, feel free to ask any questions. We do have somebody who is moderating this as well for us, who will be able to tell us about the questions as we go. But without further ado, Alex, kick us off.
All right, thanks so much, Joe. Yeah, I'm really excited to share this with all of you here, and I'm honored to be a part of this. Obviously, it's an interesting topic, it's an important topic, and it's changing every single day. And so staying on top of it is also a very fun task. So yeah, let's dive in here. So basically, what we want to do is the main focus of today is to kind of go through the trends in AI and what we're seeing, and then what we're seeing playing out for 2024. So that way we can get you as far ahead as possible and as prepared as possible for what's coming. And the nice thing is, as the agency, from where we stand, we get to see a lot of trends forming and kind of the industry shifting sort of in front of us. And so we get a really good high-level view of what the trends that are emerging in the industry. The first thing, though, before we sort of dive into what's coming on the pipeline, I mean, the big shift that we've been seeing over the last couple of years, and this is a really important one, is that the average person is currently spending 6 hours and 43 minutes online. This is plateaued, you'll see, since 2020. And in 2021, 2022, 2023, we're seeing a plateau in around the 6 hours and 45 minutes to 7 hour range. When you do the math on this, that's about 45% of our awake time spent online for the average person. So this is you, me, everyone on this webinar is spending about 45% of their awake time online. This is our target audience, everyone. And so the thing is the reality that we're in right now is everyone has access to everything, everywhere, all at once, which means that your target audience has access to everything, everywhere, all at once, and is also expecting you as a community to be everywhere, all at once, with all of the information and the content that they are looking for. It is a huge ask, and it is a huge shift that we've seen over the last couple of years, but that trend is definitely not going to slow down. It's only going to speed up. With AI coming into the market, there are some opportunities to leverage AI to help with that, but there are high expectations put on us as businesses to cater to our consumers. So really what's happening is there's always been the debate of, are you incorporating digital into your strategy? Are you doing digital marketing or traditional marketing? What's more important? What should the balance be? But the reality is that digital is no longer something that you should be incorporating into your strategy. It just simply has to be in every part of your strategy. I don't think there is a conversation anymore of if it should be traditional or digital. Digital marketing, we're just dropping the digital. It's just marketing now. Even when we look at traditional or formerly traditional channels, such as billboards, TV spots and TV ads, digital has its fingerprints all over those as well, from digital billboards, as well as connected television as well. Even when we look at connected television and streaming from your television, so streaming, obviously the streaming platforms like Netflix and Hulu and whatnot, YouTube is still the highest streamed, like double the streaming time spent on YouTube versus Netflix and every other streaming platform out there. And that is just when looking at the TV as the medium that you're watching that video content from. So it's pretty crazy in that I think no matter where we're consuming content or what channel you're looking at, digital is a big part of all of it now. It's not simply buying an ad through cable television anymore. And again, looking at the funnel in terms of how it's progressing and sort of what we're seeing in the market, the question is often, how big is the market and sort of where your customers sitting in the funnel, or your prospective clients or residents. And the reality that we're seeing is when you actually look at the data funnel, and so what this means is from an awareness, interest, decision, and action perspective, this is sort of where we're seeing the bulk of the audience sitting in that funnel. And so what this means is when you look at awareness, and awareness we're defining as maybe a user or a person out there has a problem, but they don't know that it is a solvable problem, right? They might start to see changes in their lives, or they're seeing changes in maybe their loved ones, but they don't recognize that it is a problem that they should be looking for a solution for yet. And so that awareness stage is simply becoming aware that there is a potential solution to the problems that they're facing. And so that's where 60% of our audience is sitting. 20% of our audience is sitting in the interest phase. So that means that they know there's a problem, and they're actively doing research on this issue to find what that solution is. And so we're seeing 20% of our addressable audience sitting in this part of the funnel. And then decision is when they're actually researching communities or reaching out to get answers for problems to actually make an informed decision, which is where we're seeing 17% of our audience sit. And then only 3% of the audience is actually ready to make an action or to actually move in. And I think knowing this and understanding this, I mean, it's important because when we're looking at our addressable audience, a large portion of our audience isn't sitting there ready to move in. We have to make sure that we're nurturing them through this funnel. And so when we're thinking about content or connecting with our audience, it's knowing where the bulk of our audience is sitting and then creating that content and information around that versus just trying to send the message of move in today, move in today.
Yeah, and with that piece there, I want to just touch on the fact that this is very marketing specific. Awareness, interest, decision, action, that's marketing specific. We understand that different buyers are going to be going through this journey at different paces. So as an example, in the memory care space, we know that people take action a lot quicker. They recognize or have concerns with loved ones, and they have to take action a lot quicker than they would necessarily in the independent living space. So we understand that the awareness component might be might be a little heavier on the independent living space, and then the interest, decision, action might be a little bit heavier in the memory care space. So just keep that all into consideration as you're building out where that customer journey fits. But this is very marketing specific, 60, 20, 17, and 3, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's a really good point too, because depending on the situation, like the urgency might be way higher. And so for that person, moving through this funnel is going to happen a lot quicker than when the urgency is low and they're taking the time to evaluate and understand and do the research. And so, each stage could have different timeframes for each individual consumer. It's a good point. Talking about AI and leaning into AI a little bit, over the last year in 2023, AI, I don't think I can go a day right now without hearing the words AI and ChatGPT. So ChatGPT has been the big topic of conversation for 2023, and rightly so. It's incredible technology. But I just want to point out that specific AI and technology, so that we consider generative AI, and that generative AI is set on a large language model, which then powers that generative AI. And so not all AI is built the same or is the same as this generative AI. And AI has been in the marketing industry for a long time. It isn't something new to us. The generative AI has obviously come a long way in the last year. But we've been leaning into AI for many, many different things, whether it is predictive analytics or, predictive send times with email, to marketing mix modeling, to, you name it, whether it's like paid ad algorithms. There's been a lot of aspects that involve AI, but I think like one of the main topics of conversation is definitely going to be generative AI and how to get ahead of it, because that's one that we are seeing massive changes in right now. So the first aspect, or the first piece that I want to really dive into is search. So that's Google search, Bing search, and just how it is about to change in a big way. I would say we haven't really seen the impacts of this yet, mainly because Google is sort of taking their time to fully roll it out, and so not everyone has seen this or experienced this yet. And because of that, our search behavior hasn't fully changed yet. But what's happening is AI is coming to Bing. AI is coming to Google and Bing. Bing has a stake in ChatGPT, and so Bing has integrated it into their search engine. But Google is also developing their own called Bard, which is what you see here, where they've integrated it into their search as well. And what this means is, in this video here, somebody's typing in a question. What Google is doing currently, or in most cases, is Google will give you a snippet from a website. So you might see text showing in that search result, but it's simply a snippet of text from a website that Google has found and crawled. This is different because it's actually scanning and taking information from multiple websites to compile its own unique answer, which is generative, based to answer the question that the person is asking. And so what Google is doing in this case is it's still outlining where this information came from and what websites it came from. But what I see happening is that this content is going to start getting so good that our behavior will change, and that we won't rely on going to the websites to find answers to these types of questions, but the answers will be given to us in a summarized format here. Now, the nice thing is, because the websites are still shown to where this information came from, the awareness piece as to who is the trustworthy player in the space is still going to be incredibly important from an SEO perspective. And so making sure that you are showing up as a contributor in this area is going to be extremely important. But again, just the behavior is changing, and I think it will affect SEO in a big way, and just our behavior on search in a big way.
So Alex, if I'm understanding correctly, the way that this is going to land with the answers and things like that is based on the content that the websites are actually putting out there. So I see the value of the content, and we talk a lot about like the helpful content update as an example in SEO. That helpful content, if I'm understanding correctly, would be put into here. Does that sound right?
Yeah, correct. So yeah, Google is heavily relying on the content that is being produced on your websites. And it's taking that content, and its AI is then compiling that to give the most up-to-date answer. And so Google is still very much relying on good quality content, and it is evaluating the best quality content to pull that into its answers.
Cool. Can you speak to how that's going to affect the ads themselves as well? Because obviously, if that's very organic based, obviously Google makes millions and billions and whatever dollars off of their Google ads. So I want to understand, like, how is that going to affect the way that our marketers are going to support through the Google ad process?
Yeah, so I think there's two things. One, and I touched on this a little bit later too, but yeah, SEO from a metrics perspective, I think the metrics are, I mean, we'll see how the data plays out, but the metrics will have to shift. I mean, having the awareness and being the authority in the space is incredibly important through a search like this, as we're seeing here in terms of like how it's displayed. But what potentially might happen is we'll have less click-through traffic to the site on these high funnel type searches. If somebody is still looking to make a decision or to actually book or to reach out or to contact, the traffic still is going to go to the website. I mean, based on the behavior now. But for these like higher funnel type searches where it's just information gathering, we might see less traffic coming to the website. Doesn't mean that it's not important that we're showing up here. It's just going to be hard to track on our website to determine how much that's playing into our total marketing efforts.
Interesting. Okay.
So when we're looking at organic traffic, right, that might be obviously the metric that's impacted the most.
Yeah.
Again, not a lot of data to report on this yet, but definitely a pattern to watch in the next couple of months.
It's all about Google focusing and increasing their user experience for the end user, and in turn how they can support the users like our clients in building out the right content and making sure that their communities are seen as the expert in the industry at the end of the day.
Correct. And I mean, from an ad perspective too, you kind of nailed it in that, this is a $200 billion revenue line item for Google. And this is a huge consideration for them when they're changing the search behavior for their users. How do they protect that revenue? So I think just knowing and understanding that that'll be a big priority for Google. So I don't know exactly like how the landscape will change or play out. I can guess that again, there's going to be a bigger reliance on people that are looking to, make that conversion, that like lower funnel type of search behavior. But yeah, it'll definitely be interesting for sure. All I do know is that Google will definitely be trying to protect that revenue. So I don't foresee them. I don't foresee a ton of traffic changes within the ad space.
Yeah, fair enough.
And again, we sort of touched on this a little bit, but it's a really nice visual showing sort of what's been happening over the last 10-ish years, where basically the redder the line here, this is showing Google search volatility and how much we've been seeing or how much change there's been within ad rank between different websites for various keywords. So here you see a lot of red lines around 2017. This is when Google was making a big switch to AI driven search results page. And basically what this means is you might have been ranking on the 50th page one day and the first page the next day and then the 20th page. So, just jumping around a lot. Again, this is showing kind of a map of all volatility across all keywords. But as the algorithm's learning, we're seeing volatility slow down in 2019, 2020, but then looking to 2022, we're seeing a lot more orange and red. And in 2023, we also saw like 24 core algorithm updates roll out last year as well, which was also seeing a lot of volatility. And so basically what this means is that, it's important to stay on top of Google and how they're updating their algorithm and then responding to it. Just to make sure that, if there is a change that impacts the keywords that we're trying to target, that we can adjust and shift strategies if and when needed. Now, it's a lot to keep on top of. The main thing and what Google is ultimately trying to do is to deliver the best possible content it can to provide the best user experience, like you said, Joe. And so really ensuring that our content is valuable and that it's written for humans. That's the ultimate goal. And I think Google will continue to reward that more and more. It's just trying to figure out how it can best reward that. And so as it learns, we're seeing more and more volatility as the years progress. So we spoke about some of this already, but yeah, how this changes SEO. The point that we kind of didn't really touch on is that ChatGPT can be linked almost anywhere, as well as a lot of AI models and large language models are being created and developed, and they're all being trained on effectively the same content. And so even though Google is sort of the be all end all at this point in time, and Google will obviously try to protect their market share any way they can, but what I foresee happening is that there are going to be a lot of other platforms that we start to interact with that we get our content from, whether that be Alexa or Bing or any other app that we are starting to download. There's thousands of apps coming out every single day. I know Microsoft also just came out with a cool one called PI, where you just WhatsApp chat it. It's kind of neat. But again, same thing, we're pulling content from the web to deliver that content to your device or through your app. And so that content from your website is now being linked in a number of different places. And so again, having that good content on your website is extremely important. But again, just having Google as the benchmark for rankings, I think is going to become less and less important. And so there'll be, again, just shift of metrics that we're going to have to be watching. The other thing that's going to be incredibly important is that hyperlocal SEO. So Google reviews, Google business profile, localized content on site, as well as social media. AI is going to lean into this more and more. When AI is trying to give customized, personalized recommendations based on that person's asks and requests and how we engage with those platforms, it's going to be dependent on who's around me. And again, these AIs are going to be able to give recommendations for me specifically and for you specifically. And it's going to be leaning into geographic area as well to deliver this, and as well as within trustworthy businesses. And then, human made. So I'll put an asterisk around this one. But again, Google's ultimate goal is to deliver a good experience. And so made for human content means that leaning into high quality content will be heavily favored. There's going to be a tidal wave of content that enters the internet this year, and again, most of it being fully AI generated and pumped out by machines. Having quality content is going to allow you to stand out in a big way. And Google has made the public statement that it doesn't care if it's it won't penalize you if it's AI generated content. But what we're seeing in the data is that I can't remember the exact number, it's 93 or 95% of AI written content is just not being ranked at all yet. Again, not because it's being penalized, just because it's not as high quality as human generated content for humans. And so, what I mean by human generated, in a lot of cases, it's a hybrid model. So I know in our case, what we do is we do lean on AI to generate ideas and to help us and aid us in creating content. I mean, AI has a ton of power there, but AI is still not accurate all the time. And again, just in and of itself, it's still not written for humans by humans. And so that's why we have to put a human touch on every single piece of content that we write to ensure that it has the best chance of ranking.
Cool. Alex, with that piece there, obviously a couple of years ago, with the medic update coming out, when was that? 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
We do really heavily focus on making sure that all the content is very medically accurate and all those things as when we use our content writers and things like that. So it sounds to me like kind of what you're hitting on there is it's not that AI is going to be penalized, but if it's not necessarily accurate and it doesn't actually going on along with the helpful content update, simply and articulately answer the question that's being asked on the search engine, then obviously it will still have the same effect. It just will not be ranked accordingly. Does that all make sense?
All of that, but even Google pulling it as a trusted source to be included in those AI generated responses, it also have a higher chance of doing that if it is has a human touch, I guess, within that content.
Okay, cool. That makes sense.
So yeah, I guess moving from the search piece and kind of moving into some of the really cool stuff that we're seeing in terms of creative and creative assets being generated with AI. Kind of wanted to pause and do a little contest here, and I'm curious if you can tell which of these 3 images is generated with AI. I don't know if we can do votes through the comments maybe, or the questions, or.
I believe we can, yeah.
I'll give it a bit. If that doesn't work, just note it down at home. Yeah, write it down.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to say it?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay.
Alex.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, I've seen honestly all the answers come in. It's a little bit of a trick question. All 3 of these are actually generated with AI. I mean, the crazy thing is that when you see these pictures, they do just look like real people. I mean, for me anyway, seeing this picture or any of these images, I couldn't discern if it's AI or not. And it's kind of crazy that we're getting to this stage. It's also really cool from a senior living perspective, because when we have, in some cases, we are not allowed to showcase, certain people online for privacy reasons, leaning into generative AI to create images of residents having a great time in different scenarios, can be not only really impactful, but also really useful. And just in case anyone was wondering, the tool that I use, because anyone can go and experiment with this, and I strongly encourage it. I used a platform called Midjourney to create this. I think it's about $15 a month-ish. And yeah, I mean, it allows you to kind of go in. Midjourney's out of all of them, I've seen Dolly as well as some other ones, Adobe as well. And they're all good, but just Midjourney is the best for creating people. I mean, this changes every day, but Midjourney has been the leader in this field for a couple of months. It does have its limitations, though. A few of the limitations, or one of the limitations that I want to illustrate here. So, as an example, the picture on the left, this is a image, like a real life image, which I know is still sometimes hard to discern now. This is a real life image, and I actually uploaded this into the AI, and I asked it to basically use these people, but in a different scenario. AI will have a really hard time trying to mimic or use that same person in a different environment. And so in this case, you'll see that it still generated everything from scratch. It is a different building, it's different people, they're sitting in different ways. So it tried its best to mimic it, but again, it is going to generate it from scratch. So when we're trying to like mimic people's faces or even like a building as an example, we want our building to be the same in the background. It's still going to be very hard to do as of now. I mean, that could change quickly, but as of now, that's tough. Same thing when we're dealing with like medical equipment. And we're saying, hey, can you mimic this piece of medical equipment? It's very tough for it to do that because it wants to generate it from scratch. So it'll kind of look like it, but it just won't be 100% accurate. The big thing that we're seeing in this field is that not only is this generative AI is that this is changing, so we can generate creative now, and it's getting really good. But we're seeing all of the big tech integrate this directly into their platforms, which makes it more accessible for everyone. So Canva, this is an example of Canva integrating this, where you can see they're just basically text prompting it to generate a video, and it is coming out with like a quick short video. In this case, it's someone walking towards a castle. And so what's cool is it just allows us to create better ads and create it faster as well. And in terms of this is kind of, we'll watch this video and then we'll kind of explain it. Some of you may have seen this. This is a deep fake, so obviously this is not Morgan Freeman. It's always a little creepy to watch, and these are starting to go around the web a little bit more. But yeah, we'll play this.
I am not Morgan Freeman. What you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
Every time gets still creepy. Yeah, I mean, so obviously watching that, it very much sounds like Morgan Freeman. It very much looks like Morgan Freeman. It is not, it is an AI. This is considered a deep fake is the name that's being used, but effectively it's an AI that's trying to pretend to be Morgan Freeman. Now, the reason why this is so convincing is because Morgan Freeman has a lot of video about him on the internet, as well as a lot of vocals on the internet. So there's a lot of content to be able to train an AI on him and his experience. However, it's changing fast, and so I do see a world in the near future where anyone, like, this will become accessible to almost anyone to be able to train an AI on themselves. And so while there is the scary the scary side of this, I kind of want to focus on the optimistic side of it and the opportunity here, because I think there is a really big opportunity from a marketing perspective. I know, when you have a busy schedule or a ton of content demands on various platforms, to have the ability to train a AI on you, so that way you can be in videos in different environments. If the script says, I mean, I need to go and film a video in some other city or some other community, but instead of flying there, to be able to insert myself as an AI into that video is absolutely insane. I mean, it's obviously reduces the budget needed for something like that. But also frees up a lot of time when I can simply brief out a video to a creative director or a marketing strategist to be able to come up with a video based on the AI that has already been pre-trained.
Hey, Alex, somebody just commented on here and says, everything looks so real, just something in the eyes is off. And I was just thinking, it's so accurate. But one thing that you and I have kind of chatted about in the past is that AI right now is like at its most infancy that we'll ever experience it at. It's going to get crazier and crazier and crazier, and we're going to get eventually, like, even those little nuances of the eyes being off, you won't necessarily notice that. Like, the things are going to get stranger and stranger as time goes on. And I'm as excited as I am, it's a little intimidating, a little scary sometimes, but just wanted to hit on that.
Yeah, I do agree though. The eyes, like the eyes are a little bit, because just like the eyes are a little off, and so it gets you. But yeah, I mean, to your point, like, and there's like the creepy side, I think the productive side, and I think it's important to keep both top of mind and understand that, because there's a lot of ethical considerations that come into play with AI. But at the same time, I mean, to be able to lean in and to use a lot of this to our advantage, it also makes us incredibly productive, and can give us a huge advantage and edge in the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, kind of speaking or going through some of sort of the capabilities from a creative perspective and what we're seeing within the generative AI space, kind of what's happening now in the world is a lot of us will deal with single creative. So we'll have an idea for a concept of a campaign. We will brief in that campaign. We'll produce an ad or a creative that surrounds that campaign. We put that ad into market. We run it. We'll test it. We'll see what happens. We do see a lot of bigger companies doing segmented personalization. But I mean, to do that, it's a huge creative demand and ask. And so the resources needed to do a lot of this stuff is huge. And in some cases, segmented personalization, it can be very simple. What I'm speaking to is when we're thinking about like massive campaigns that are trying to target multiple segments across, and it's the same segments across email, across search, across display, across Google, Bing, like all of the channels. And in doing so within the same segments, I mean, if we're talking about developing 5-6 different pieces of creative for each different channel, it's a huge burden on the creative resources. And I've seen big brands with $100 million budgets that still have trouble making this happen because of the creative needs to do stuff like this. And so it is happening, but in some cases at scale, it can still be difficult. Obviously, I wrote down the fair housing laws are in effect here too. So there are certain limitations around segmenting that we have to take into account. However, what we are moving towards, which is really cool, is kind of that one-to-one creative experience that we'll get to, where AI will be able to generate an ad on the spot based on that target person, not target audience, but target person. So we start actually moving away from demographics and moving away from the limitations of the fair housing laws, and moving straight towards that individual user's needs at their point in the funnel and delivering the best possible message without having to create 15,000 different pieces of messaging. From a marketing automation perspective, this obviously plays into marketing automation in a big way. Marketing automation is the automation of communication to our clients. But generative AI can be a huge benefit here. And so, we're just seeing chatbots become a whole lot better. Personalization within the content, same thing with that one-to-one personalization, or that with ads and creative, also within generated email, text, and copy, as well as extremely advanced lead scoring. Obviously, lead scoring is possible now, but really leaning into AI and the data that we have to come up with really complex lead scoring algorithms. And then also just the improved resident experience. If we can deliver an email based on their, that residents, what they like, what they enjoy to do, maybe specific to their current experience or their current needs, and just to improve the personalization of communication to them based on the data that we have on them. So kind of touching on chatbots, like I mentioned, chatbots are about to become a whole lot better. This is a really cool example from Expedia, where Expedia integrated ChatGPT into their chatbot. And so basically going to Expedia and just saying, hey, I want to travel somewhere. In this case, it's Hawaii for a honeymoon. What should we do? And ChatGPT will simply coach you through that to get you an end result. So you can eventually book that through them, and then also using AI to help you book that. Now, again, Expedia in this case has a ton of content, a ton of information online. And so it is easy to train a AI on this for most businesses that are limited in how much content they have. It can be a little bit trickier, although I've seen a lot of different technologies and platforms coming out that are allowing small to medium-sized businesses lean into technology like this, which is really cool to see and is changing at a crazy fast rate. But how can we actually do this eventually? And so what can you do? How can you prepare? There's the simple aspect of CRM and marketing automation integration and making sure that those two channels are talking and are fully integrated. But really what it boils down to is your CRM and making sure that that data is clean and up to date. So when someone moves in, make sure that field is updated, but also if they do have certain likes or dislikes or events that they like or hobbies, and updating that in the CRM, making it as robust as possible. That then allows the marketing automation system to lean into all of that information to personalize the content and the communication as much as possible. And so this is where that CRM is just, that data integrity is going to become so important because AI is going to be leaning on that data and that information to inform much of the communication in the future. This also is a big part of that data, that information, that data integrity. But the big change that has happened in 2024 is Google very much promised us and gave us a lot of warning that the third-party cookie is being phased out. And in the last 2 weeks, we've seen Google roll this out across about, I think it's up to like 100,000 Chrome browsers now. And so it's still being rolled out, but it's being rolled out fairly fast, where third-party cookies are going away. The question that I get all the time is, what's a third-party cookie? Doesn't have chocolate chips in it, unfortunately. What a third-party cookie is if you are browsing the web and going to a website, that basically that software will install a cookie on your browser to track your behavior across the web. So as an example, if I go to a news site and there are ads running, there might be an ad platform that puts a third-party cookie onto my browser, so that way it knows what websites I'm going to after that. Now, that data is not being sent back to people so they can spy on you. That's not how that works. However, it does improve targeting from an advertising perspective. And that's basically how the whole marketing industry has been built over the last 15, 20 years, is through that third-party cookie. So this being phased out is a big change in the marketing world and how we target people. But it's an important change. Third-party cookies, there was malicious software that was being embedded in these cookies, and it did allow ill-intended people to basically take hold or take control and to hack certain people's browsers. I'm not technical on that front, so I don't know all the details there, but basically it was a privacy issue, and it was for a very good reason. So this being phased out is a good thing. When we talk about Google and Facebook, like the big platforms, they are honestly in a good position because they have so much data on us as users, from like when we leave for work to where our office is, where our home is. I mean, you name it, what music was to, like Google has a lot of data on us. And so being able to track us on interests is actually not that difficult for Google and Facebook to do. But from a marketing perspective, we're seeing a lot of brands lean heavily into first-party data What first-party data is it's the data that's collected when somebody comes to your website. So as an example, if you're going to book a flight, you might go to that airline's website. You might type in the destination that you're going to. Maybe you exit off of that website and then you come back, but you notice, hey, my flight search is still saved there. How is that saved there? Well, that's a first-party cookie that they put on your browser to re-input that information. So it does improve the user experience. That's the main goal. But all of that browsing behavior can be collected in a platform like Google Analytics, as an example. But any sort of identifiable information should then also be collected in a CRM. So making sure that it is in a central spot, as well as potentially leaning into that analytics data for unidentified users as well. And so this is, again, just why that clean data within the CRM is so important. So that way, when someone does identify themselves, we have all of the previous browsing history tied to that person.
Alex, a question came in and you answered it in like so many different ways, but I'm going to ask you to make it a little bit more concise here for us. Can my community website still track the user's data without cookies?
Correct. Yeah, because we can use first-party cookies to do that tracking. Yeah. So analytics isn't really affected. It just basically what happens is we now have to rely heavily on that first-party data and that first-party information. And so what that means, taking it a step further, is then using that information to then basically put that data, or to train those ad algorithms like Google and Facebook on which type of users I am trying to target, which again has been happening for a while, but this will become more important. So any data that you can feed into those app platforms is going to give you the edge in this market right now.
I also do just want to quickly touch on GA4 with that as well, the multi-touch attribution component, and then having the users use softwares like Active Demand that integrate directly through to the CRM. To your point, Alex, making sure that the content in the CRM is accurate, but also making sure that we fully understand exactly what that user journey is from A to Z when they're actually coming through to the website, all those components. That stuff is very, very, it's still all available to track, but I just wanted to kind of close the loop on that component and make sure that everyone sees the user coming through from all different marketing tactics, getting that information through on the website, whether that be a form fill, a call, et cetera, pushing through to the CRM. And in many situations, depending on your CRM, having that bilateral integration where you can directly correlate the return on investment back and saying, this is how the user came through, this is how much money they're spending in the community for rent, and then being able to adjust the campaigns accordingly. All of that remains intact for those who are using marketing automation to support those efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are just some examples of many in terms of like how you probably already are or could be collecting some of that data and getting people to either identify themselves or ensure that just, again, their website behavior is being tracked. Now thinking about just like the ethical considerations of AI, again, it's just realizing that as we use AI more, there are biases built into these generative AI models. And I mean, these are real examples, trying to get it to create a photo of a personal assistant versus a CEO versus a nurse. And I mean, these are just 4 examples of each, but there's obvious biases that we're seeing here. And so I think just the important takeaway is when you're looking at your target audience and even like your customer base, what is the diversity that you're seeing within your customer base, and ensuring that it is reflected in the creative and the imagery that you are creating, and don't just settle for that first image that it gives you. Push harder, because you can get it to do what you want, but you just might see some biases showing through. And I mean, people will blame the AI for being biased, but I mean, it's based on the content that it was trained on, which is the internet. And so it's the bias in us, I guess, that is now being portrayed within the AIs. Yeah, so just in terms of some key takeaways, I wanted to kind of leave or an end note on just some tips to help you with ChatGPT and some prompts that'll help you today. So one example is yeah, write me a survey to send residents who have recently moved in to our senior living community, because again, you can use ChatGPT for a number of different things. These are just a few simple ideas. Put together a marketing campaign calendar for me and my senior living community for 2024, present that campaign calendar in a table format. Third one, please write a list of frequently asked questions that I could use for my senior living community that specializes in the following areas, and write me a short reminder email to send out before their tour of a senior living community named blank. This is probably a screenshot slide, so I'll pause here for a second just to maybe screenshot this and use it for later. But yeah, these are a few ideas of many. A good little tip that I always like to use is when you're engaging with ChatGPT, you always kind of tell ChatGPT to act as a blank. So if you want it to write a marketing campaign, act as a marketer or a CMO for my company or my community, give it the task, a blog post, a marketing plan, and then show as a summary, a spreadsheet, a bullet point presentation, or bullet point formats, presentation, any of this. And then that way it really gets specific into what you want ChatGPT to give to you. And then the last one, and this one's probably my favorite one, a bonus tip for prompting ChatGPT, because I use this one all the time. And this one really ties into the scenarios that we were giving before in terms of what you could use ChatGPT for. But whenever you are asking it for something, so explain what you're trying to accomplish, what's your vision, if it is a marketing plan, if it is communication with residents. But once you explain that vision, the next step is just to ask ChatGPT what it needs to give you the best answer. And it'll list 5 or 6 questions that it needs. And then you answer those questions to the best of your abilities. And then one of the keys here is then to also ask it for 5 versions of that answer or of that output and explain why it thinks it's a good answer. If what you're asking for is like a marketing plan full blown, I always ask it to give it like a summary of that and then explain why, if it's possible. So that way I can choose the one that I like best and then ask it to expand on that one. And so it just even directs a little bit further. But this has been a game changer in terms of how I've been using ChatGPT.
Alex, a question just came in that says, is there a benefit to using the paid ChatGPT over the free version? Do you know the answer to
that? Yeah, I'm going to say definitely there's a benefit. From a content generation perspective, I would say, like, from what I've read, I haven't tested the non-paid versus paid enough to, like, side by side to actually compare the differences. From what I've read online, there are differences, and it does actually make a difference. It's probably not a huge difference, or in terms of maybe being noticeable for many different types of prompts that you're prompting it with. However, what I would say is that the paid version does offer image generation. You can do data analysis, which is very cool. And you can also get it to access the internet in real time. So it does give you access to live information. If you're popping in your website to say, hey, can you scan my website for information, and then write some key content based on all of this that I've just trained you on, it helps it be a lot more accurate in its answers. So there's a lot of pluses that I found with ChatGPT paid or plus.
Perfect.
Or ChatGPT 4. It goes by so many names. Yeah. And again, we mentioned this, but AI is, so just a word of warning and a word of caution is that AI is not always factually accurate. So check the work. I found this many times. It's called hallucinations is what the term is, but basically you can ask it to deliver, let's say, medical information in this case. And ChatGPT has been known to just make it up. And when you say, where did you get that answer from? It will just make up a scholarly article and even give you an author. When you look up the author, a lot of times the author is real, but the article, like, this person never actually wrote it. And the problem is ChatGPT is very confident in what it tells you and is very convincing. And so if you do kind of like prod further, ChatGPT almost always doubles down and says, nope, this is 100% accurate. Definitely believe me, even though it's not. So again, this is why when we are putting content out in the world, why we always have that human hybrid system to fact check the work and to also make sure that it is accurate. Now, I won't go through all of these, but yeah, I mean, like obviously as an agency, like we're leaning into AI in a big way. These are just a few examples of how we are using it. This isn't fully inclusive just because this does change every single day. But just to give you some ideas of maybe how you could use it within your communities, you know, from an SEO perspective, we're using it for content ideas, planning, keyword research. We do train it on tone and voice, which has become incredibly helpful, like tone and voice of the brand. As well as fact checked and edited. I mean, we do that personally in-house, but yeah, I guess that one, we just do that personally in-house, so that's not really AI. From a creative perspective though, yeah, resizing assets, there's been a lot of really cool progress being made there. Stock image creation, background cropping or expansion. Again, I mentioned stock image creation for senior living and how beneficial that is. Video creation and edits, yeah, paid ads, copy suggestions, performance alerts, keyword research, optimizations, yeah, in a number of different ways. So we're leaning into it, but again, just within our position, we're also being cautious in certain instances to make sure that it doesn't impact our performance or accuracy of the content. And I think just to sort of summarize here, you know, we talked a lot about third-party cookies going away and just talked about kind of the shifts that are happening and getting more personalized content. And I always love this. I mean, you know, especially with the fair housing laws, how we can't target on demographics, but that persona shouldn't be about demographics. You know, you look at Prince Charles versus the Prince of Darkness, and you know, the demographics are the same, but very, very different people. And so as technology improves and as the way we approach marketing shifts, it'll be more about personas and sort of the contextual problems that they're facing at the time, and then being able to target based on that. And that's it. So I guess we can kind of end on a few questions if any come in. But if not, this has been recorded. It'll be shared, so you can watch it at any point in time.